Welcome back to Inspired Inc., the CWS podcast, a show where we promote indie comic creators and become inspired by what they create and their journey of creating it. I'm your host, Brandon Bloxdorf, and today on the show we have Adam Lemnah, creator of the book Relic Hunter, joining us, and we talk about trusting in yourself when starting to create your art, how important cons are even if you're not making money, and how the indie comic revolution continues to grow and thrive. All this and so much more on today's Inspired Inc.
Comix Wellspring.
So, what did you grow up reading? I'm really curious. Like, what was like your era of growing up? Because it sounds very much in like that. I don't know. I was really into like Michael Moorcock, like when I was getting into like fantasy and stuff like
really
that.
Cool,
and,
yeah.
And it sounds like you probably have the same like stratosphere of interest and shows
totally.
and all that. But like, what was like your influence to kind of come on your upbringing?
Oh man, let's see here. So like tons of fantasy novels and like D&D novels, like out the wazoo. Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms, all that stuff. And Dark Sun, Prism Pentad. Can't forget that one. That one's huge. Because I was a big fan of Brahm too. I loved it. I loved his art, man. Really, really huge fan. And, I read like comics wise, Batman and Lobo and Preacher and, Spawn. And like, I was super lucky, like coming up, like Image Comics was like when, like, that's when I was like 12, 13, 14, 15. So it was
Perfect.
Like the perfect age. So like everything, like anything Image, anything Todd McFarlane, anything Rob Liefeld, but also like at the back of my shop, they had like the adult books. So like there was Love and Rockets, there was Savage Sword of Conan, there was Vampirella, there was, old issues of like Creepy and Eerie and that kind of stuff. And there was like a big, cardboard cutout of Vampirella in the back. And that's where all the D&D stuff was. And like, we would play like Magic the Gathering there, and like they did like big Warhammer nights there. So it was like, it was a really fun shop. And it was like, in high school we were really welcomed in, which was a lot of fun. And I, I read all sorts of stuff. I also I loved Spider-Man. I loved, Darkhawk.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Because the suits and designs behind all that were just so like intriguing when you're a kid, and you see stuff like, after a while, like, you want to find something like that looks cooler than Batman after a while. You know what I mean? Like, what's a more advanced armor? What's a like, and characters like Darkhawk are just like all of that put together.
There was there was like an element of Spider-Man and Iron Man and like all of that sort of like mixed together in Darkhawk. And so I really liked that. Plus it was like super futuristic.
Yeah,
exactly. So we thought in the early 90s. But, it also like, just I was a huge fan of like fantasy art. So like Larry Elmore and it's Simon Bisley and like all these guys, and then I was a huge fan of the Turtles and all that kind of stuff. So like, there was a little bit of like underground stuff that I had access to, or like more indie stuff, I guess you could say, that I had access to, which was really awesome. And I also had a good friend who was like writing comics, just like mini comics and stuff, and another friend who was like drawing them. So it was like, I was like, oh, this is so cool, I want to do it. But I was also like, I'm not a good enough artist for that.
What kind of brought that like mindset on? I'm very curious on, because I feel like I had a very similar thing when I was younger. Like I saw my brother draw and I tried to trace stuff and I tried to mimic stuff and like I didn't think it was good. And then you have like one person give doubt on your art, and I kind of just like gave up.
I don't even think
like,
I had anybody like doubting my art, because I took like art classes in high school and stuff. It was always just more like fun for me. And I just didn't think of myself as I guess I just didn't really understand like the process of making art. At such a young age, it was just more like, if it didn't look like what what was commercially available, then
Yeah.
it wasn't something that I thought was like on the level of professionalism. You know,
Right.
obviously since then I've learned a lot more, and, you know, also coming up, you know, I was also a musician, so I played like guitar and I played bass and I played drums and
Cool.
stuff like that. And so like I was also really, so like I was into like punk rock and into like, you know, metal and grunge and all the, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I wanted to start bands, and I think I was just more sort of like focused on music at that point.
Yeah. Same, actually.
And
Yeah.
but always, there was always like, you know, I was always a big fan of like music poster art and like film poster art and stuff like that. So ultimately, you know, I ended up studying film in college, and that was sort of like the direction that I decided to go in, like artistically at that point, because I just, again, it was like one of those things where like, if you're not like Rembrandt at 15,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, you just don't think that you're gonna, like, some guys have the balls to like be out there and like put it out there no matter what, and I totally have
Yeah.
such respect for that. But for me, it was much more, you know, I was a little, you know, I'm a big guy and I have a loud voice and everything, but I was also, you know, there's like a level of like introversion as well,
Oh, yeah.
or social anxiety or whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it. And, you know, sharing art definitely was one of those things that I was like a little nervous about. Now that I'm in my 40s, I'm like, I don't give a fuck.
I don't care.
People
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it, they like
Exactly.
it. If they don't, they don't. That's it, you know, like whatever. But
I love that, like, evolution behind your mindset, but also like how much that like resonates and how similar that is too. Because even when I was trying to, I didn't understand the process of art, and that's literally why like I would try to throw something down, and it's like your first attempt at drawing a
yeah,
character, and you're like, oh, this sucks. Like it's not, yeah, but it looks so easy when you're looking at like Bagley or whoever you know you're admiring at the time. Like, oh, it's just a
yeah,
couple lines. You just gotta, but like putting it pen to pencil and you realize how like your hand shakes and like how like everything works and like the layers and the process of thumbnailing and outlining and how to really bring it up to life, and then
yeah,
inking is a whole nother thing to learn, and then coloring and all this
totally.
type of stuff. Like now, we brought it upon spilled ink because I didn't really like know how to draw, and I wanted to get over that fear. So I was like, if
Yeah,
I just draw really crappily every Thursday night live and people see it, maybe that'll
yeah,
help take away that fear that it seems like you had and I had as well. And so
totally.
like it's one of those things I try to break people out of that shell of like,
I
we
love
have
it.
Max Flowers who's phenomenal. Like Max
Yeah,
spits out
yeah,
crazy stuff every week. And then you see mine, which is very different in comparison for
totally.
my level and everything. But it's that push and that drive I think that's helped evolve you and me too over the last couple weeks,
Oh yeah,
to
for
like
sure.
feel comfortable sharing, and like even not my best pieces, like what I'm doing for Inktober in this notebook isn't like top, like I'm not putting as much effort into it because it's a
Sure.
notebook sketch, but at least I'm like, oh, I'm getting some practice in. And you just got to
Every
realize
day.
like you got to do it for a bit every day and just
Yep.
practice. And even your best drawings, you're going to learn something from. I mean, your worst drawings, you're going to learn
Totally.
something from it.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. For me, it was, you know, it was finally like putting aside, because it can feel daunting when you first
Mhm.
start out as an artist, like, oh, it's going to take so long to do all this. Oh, I don't have the skills. It's going to take so long to develop those skills. But
Mhm.
if you just do it every day, you put that aside and you just think of it like on a day-to-day basis rather than like a, you know, like a long-term kind of thing. Think about it in the short term, and then just every day it's like you just draw as much as you can. If it's 5 minutes, that's what you do. If it's 5 hours, that's what you do, you know, and you try and always be trying to like implement new, you know, techniques or
Mhm.
ideas or like what you've been learning or what you see that you want to try. That's the other thing too, is like, because I'm very lucky that I get to do what I do for a living, and comics are much more fun for me because I don't have to depend on comics fully for my livelihood. But that doesn't mean that I don't take them just as seriously. I mean, I do, but it gives me room for experimentation, and it gives me room to fail, whereas other people don't feel like they have that room to fail. So because I have allowed myself to like sometimes like it's like I'll work on something, I'll work on it, and I'll just never get it right. But like, I'll still put it out there, like whatever. I'm probably the only person that's going to see what I don't like
every
about it, and
flaw.
that's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
that was like, and doing a lot of like Eli during the pandemic was doing this thing called the Ringside Anthology zine,
Yeah.
where we would get together like once a month and we would just have a prompt and we would just draw and just hang out and draw. And that was like, and like on Zoom, we've done it in person. And it's a lot of fun, man. And it just like, it takes away that like stigma or the fear of not wanting to draw around other people, because like it doesn't matter, especially like if you're drinking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Loosen up a little bit and you're just like having fun at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then like when I started doing cons, I mean, like I was so nervous about like drawing like sketches for people and stuff, and that's when like tons of imposter syndrome, pops up, because you're just like, I'm not good enough. Like, I don't know. Like, can I take money for this? Like, it's not.
I do that. I have that same thing right now.
Yeah.
I will hang out at cons and I wish they were nearby, but we have these little sketch cards. And
Yeah.
like, I'll hang out with Doug Knight and we'll work on these sketch cards and we'll spit
Yep.
out a couple. And then like, Doug will sell them for $5-10 a piece. And I'm just like throwing them at people. I'm like, just take it. And
Yeah,
then like
man.
at the end
Doug's
of the
so
day,
awesome.
I
I
bet I
love
could have
him.
made $20 or something. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
he could
yeah,
have made
man.
it.
Actually, at
But
Heroes, they gave us for free these awesome, like,
I
little
think they're the
pieces
same.
of,
That's it. That's what I'm
yeah,
using.
the
Yeah.
eons.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got like
so
3 of those
good.
packs. Yeah. They're great.
Yeah,
They're so
man.
good to
I've been doing
practice with.
sketches for LA Comic Con, which is this weekend, that we're recording.
Yeah.
So I think they're fantastic, and it's really fun, really fun. I
It's
sell
just
so
extra
many sketch
arsenal
cards.
too.
That's like one of my favorite things to do. That and sketch covers. I love doing them. They're just so much fun, man.
Well, that red
And
one I saw you work on, that blade, I think it
oh,
was
thanks,
so
man.
sick.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
one came out really good. I was super excited, and it's just like you always get things that you never expected. First of all, and second of all, like it, just having the time when you're at a con to like do that stuff is really fun, because like it's so difficult to find the time to be able to draw in our day-to-day lives, especially because we don't have, like, comics isn't our day job or whatever.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So
You're
it's
cramming it in between everything. And just like
exactly.
Inktober, I hang out with my girlfriend and I'm like, sorry, I got to draw for the next movie. Put on something I could watch and draw to, please. Like,
Yeah.
I can't get too
Yeah.
invested.
Nothing new. I can't
Yeah.
watch
Yeah.
anything new.
No, exactly. And you're right. I mean, finding time to draw, especially at cons, gets really hard. Because I mean, unless it's maybe one of the first nights or something, maybe a
Right.
Thursday or Friday. But like Saturday night, you're probably socializing, you're with everybody. That's the main
Definitely.
time to network and talk to people. The convention, you're trying so hard just to slang books and get people's attention to you.
Yep.
And then Sunday, you are just wiped out no matter what. Like I
I
feel like all
find
of us
that like tabling with other people is a huge help
so
as
much.
well. And I know that like a lot of people won't sort of mention this or whatever, but like I table all the time with friends and with the guys from Cosmic Lion and the guys out here in LA. And I like sharing tables better than I like being there by myself. One,
Oh,
you get
for
more
sure.
people coming by, but two, you also it cuts down. You can actually sit down and draw something and prepare something and not have to
Breathe.
worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you can spell each other out too, because 12 hours on the floor at a con is like that's
Brutal.
a long time,
Yeah,
man.
it hurts. People, I don't think, that fans and audience don't realize that sometimes we get there, 8, 9, 10 a.m. The con doesn't open till 12 sometimes. And then
Yep.
you're just setting up, prepping up it's a pop-up. It's a
Yeah.
pop-up business you're doing. You want to make it spectacular. You want to stand out. You want to get people's eyes and attraction. You want to make sure your stuff is displayed well, but also make it functional for you to operate in, to the conduct business. And
Yeah.
then like if you need a moment to sit down or just like eat or something, like I
Yeah.
think so many people have walked up on me when I'm just having a sandwich in my hand. I'm just like, I'm so sorry. Like
Yeah.
we'll get over, like, and it's just one of those things. You're just trying to survive that con.
Yeah, I like
But
bringing my son. My son's 12. He comes with me pretty much to every show now, because
that's cool.
it's great. It's great to have somebody there. It's fun for him. It's fun for me. And again, it's like, I feel like this is, and this is something that wasn't clear to me at the beginning, but now having done a number of shows, it's such a time for everybody to like come together and spend time together. And so like, it's like family time because you get to know everybody because you see everybody at the shows.
I love that. That's my favorite part is just, I mean, like seeing you, we like, we met online. We, had a few messages and exchanges. Like I've
Yeah.
known Eli and Morgan and, it was first time meeting Anton and Ro as well. And it was just like, it's so exciting because you're just like, I get to meet you
I
finally. And it
know.
just feels so like spectacular. And because what other circumstance would have brought so many people together and so many other creatives like from across the
man.
country, and it's you kind of treasure these moments a little bit more,
Absolutely,
and
dude. It
you
becomes
really
like
feel
these,
fortunate.
these times when we get to see each other, see what we've been up to, and like, it's just the time like during the con is almost like the time that's not even what I care about. I
Yeah,
love
exactly.
the. I mean, I do. I mean,
Yeah.
thank goodness that we can go and do it. But like seeing everybody and like having dinner and like drink and draw and like all
Mhm.
these activities where we're just hanging out and drawing together, like with Eli and everybody, like we always break out these stories where we take different panels and do stuff. It's really fun, man. It's a great experience. I would encourage everybody to go to cons, man, just because they're like, it's so much better than being online. You get to meet the people in person and get to know the mind behind the books,
Yeah. And that's what I'm really fortunate for to do what I do, like not only like do I get to go and like do the trenches and sell my books and be behind the table and have that experience, but like with CWS I get to go around and film so much of the
Yeah,
convention, and then I get to make this cool, we put together reels whenever I do conventions now, just to have everyone have something to kind of treasure and look back on, and then like
it's
have
so
a
cool,
moment to
man.
highlight.
Yeah.
It's really rad, and it gives me even more time to connect with people, and what's cool about that is that, like, you're kinda just, like, nurturing relationships at that point,
Oh,
like,
totally.
I love how, like it's weird, like, my friend group has, like, grown, and it's like when you're in
Yeah,
30s, you kind of
totally.
expect it to shrink down more and more, but I've somehow, like, gained people to, like, "Oh, I need
Without a doubt.
this person for a project. Oh, I could get them for a pinup. Oh, I have an idea for a variant cover I could pull from this person," and
Yep.
then I give opportunities to people. And it's like, well, if we're talking at a con and I just need something for someone for whatever reason now, I just look to my side. I'm like, oh, Adam can do this. Like, let's just
Yeah,
knock this
man,
out.
totally.
Like it's
It's
crazy.
really awesome because it offers so many opportunities to like grow your audience, but also to
Mhm.
be like artistic and
Mhm.
make friends. And that's been a real net positive for me is getting to meet everybody and getting to have a community. I mean, it's like finding your tribe, man, and
Mhm.
sometimes it takes longer to do that.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
mean, like, it's interesting, there's different kinds of people that make comics, and I think the one thing that we all have is this like obsession with visual imagery.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's always fun, man. It's just always fun.
And so, like, comics have been a big part of your life because of COVID, and
Oh yeah.
kind of that time how it came together, and kayfabe as
Oh
well,
yeah,
which is
totally.
two crazy things that like I've always resonated with, because when in 2018 when Apollo started, I was trying to like be like, how do I do a podcast? What am I going to do it
Yeah,
like I
yeah, yeah.
started looking for shows and channels to be like, what can I do differently, or what can I rip off, enough to make it my own. And then kayfabe I discovered, and that was where Apollo came from. It was directly inspired
Yeah, man.
as a podcast to be like, oh, I want to talk about comics once a week, and I could just promote a cool book I love. And then kayfabe turned me into like, okay, make more comics. And it's
That's
crazy how
it.
that show just like challenged all of us to get up and do the thing we keep on saying we want to
That's the
do.
thing, man. I mean, like, there were so many people who were waiting to be told to do it,
Yeah. Hmm.
who were waiting for, I dare I even say, like, the permission to do
Yeah.
it. You
Yeah.
know, the permission to do it with when it doesn't look, you know, like you would traditionally expect a comic to look.
Hmm.
And like the idea that anybody can do it and all you have to do is look at comics,
Hmm.
and that you don't need to be educated. You can just do it yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
like that appeals, like that DIY sort of feel to the punk rock feel
Hmm.
to kayfabe was very, very attractive to me. It's funny because it just sort of like it showed up sort of randomly on my Instagram feed, and I was like, "What? What is this?" And I was just sort of like, occasionally watching them and like a few other shows. But then they did the episodes on Akira and
Oh.
Otomo.
Hmm.
And I was like hooked, dude. I was like, this is because Akira has always been like my absolute favorite,
So
probably
great.
my absolute favorite comic of all
I
time.
haven't read a lot of manga, but like
Yeah.
I've read all of Akira. Like I have the box set. Like that's the
Yeah.
one thing I did. I think during COVID I scored it and I just like
Yeah.
tore through it and I obsessed over it. And it just, dude, it's all mind blowing in that book. Every single
It is.
page.
For me, it started with the movie, and then like I picked up the mangas after I had seen the movie, and I was like super in just like the size of the story, the weight of the story, and not to mention like the sheer like mastery of art that is
Hmm.
shown in there, and mastery of comic book form
Yes.
that Otomo brings to like everything. It just was, and then also it was really cool because they went through the stuff that came prior to it, and it was like that that very much appealed to like a historical. Like I love history. My other major in college was archaeology, so I'm like a
Oh,
huge
cool.
fan of history, and so like that side, the historian side of things, really appealed to me as well. Just as like, let's get the basis of what created what we're into now, and that really appealed to me. So yeah, I mean, I can't overstate how important kayfabe was for me, because it was like
Yeah.
there's just, at the time especially, really no other show that really did such kind of like deep dives on things,
Yeah.
but also
Hmm.
brought like a level of critique to it that was like on the same level as like good film critique or something like that, where it wasn't just like,
True.
you know praising everything to praise them, or cutting everything down to cut it down. You were really, looking at it and judging, you know commercially created art on its
Hmm.
merits as art, rather than
Yes.
as, a commercial property or something like that. So it's, fascinating on a lot of levels. I hope that
And
people take the time to like go and watch the shows, man.
I hope so.
It's
It's
not
there's
being
so
done
much valued
anymore. Like
content.
those episodes there's so many good episodes in there. It was an entire, education.
You could literally like I would just put on kayfabe. Like I had moved across the country, and like even when like my whole life was changing right before I moved and everything, I would just put on kayfabe, and it was a comfort show. And it
Yeah.
was also like I'd put on like the trial, like when they would talk about like Stanley and like Kirby and like McFarlane and Neil Gaiman, and I love listening to those. Like,
Yeah.
and I wanted to go back and like recheck them out and find them and everything. And it just
Totally.
it inspired me beyond belief because like again, we're talking about like art and drawing, like I realized that like not everything had to look like Jim Lee and Jason Fabuk
Right.
and Tony Daniels. And it was opening me up and it was giving me like the courage to be like, oh, you know what? Like I could probably try to take a hack at this. And so
Yeah.
Apollo did their first, like, it was called at first it was a drink and draw because I didn't know another title for it.
Sure.
And we didn't even drink. I was actually like microdosing on shrooms on those episodes, like and seeing to experiment. And so then it evolved into a show called Drawn Shit, but it was spelled like dollar sign hashtag explanation point like cross just to like not get censored. And that was all because of kayfabe. That was all just so I could
Yeah.
challenge myself and just be like, okay, if I want to make comics, I should at least try to start drawing now. So in 5 years, I could draw like a half shitty comic, and in 10 years, I could have like a quarter shitty comic. And like I knew there was gonna be an evolution if
Yeah.
I stuck to it, and it was just it's crazy how that still resonates with people and how much we still like we miss the show for sure, but now it's like this beautiful archive of just
Oh,
content we
totally.
can go back to,
Oh,
that
absolutely. I
you
mean,
I
it's
can
just
discover so many things.
it's responsible for the next generation. I feel like
Hmm.
of creators within comics. So many people, so many of us came up because of kayfabe, and now like we're inspiring the next people, which
Hmm.
is really awesome too. Because like you see, like Tony McMillan, for example, like he
Great
inspires
dude.
Morgan Heron, who is going to inspire somebody else, and it's all, it's really interesting to see because I know Tony from, the CKRS group, and and I know Morgan from Cosmic Lion, and it's like, all of these worlds continue to like sort of come together. And that's another thing. I mean, like, there's a lot of different like crews from like all the different kind of like parts of the country, and like I love seeing like all of the crews coming together now because we all had this like shared experience. It's really cool, man.
And it's like, it's funny because Cosmic Lion is very, I feel like, West Coast based. There's so many of you guys out there.
Yeah,
And then like there's like, you guys have a good section of people in Texas too. And then, lesser known comics and Apollo, we're basically like the East Coast
yeah,
base. And
I
then we
love
have like our section that meets up in Texas as well. And it's like a weird middle point between everything.
it. Is
But
it's so great, man, and it's so
yeah,
great seeing like lesser known and Apollo doing so well, and it's so great seeing Cosmic Lion do well, and everybody, like it's the cruise, man. Like that's the
yeah.
thing. Like all of us have, we have this shared sort of desire to create things that aren't out there that
Hmm.
we want to see. And that's the
Yes.
thing that I think is like the best part of it is like nothing is being created because it's like commercially acceptable or saleable or whatever.
Hmm.
We're creating the books that we want to see made out there,
Yep. Yeah.
and it feels really authentic, and it's really cool, man. It's just we're in a great time for comics, man. That's the thing.
It's a
It's
great indie revolution that we're kind of capturing on right now. And I realized that like at Indie Creator Con this year, and then, just kind of the what formulated after that too, like the relationships that were kind of met and then sustained throughout the year. Cause then, seeing Eli at Heroes Con and just catching up with him and hanging out. I hung up basically with the Cosmic Lion crew the whole time. And it
yeah,
was just
yeah,
it's such a blast. Cause like even what you're saying, like, we're different fractions, we're different crews and everything, but none of us will like exclude the other because
no,
you're like
no, not
not
at
part
all.
of our crew, like it's so welcoming that I could promote Apollo and I am Apollo and I go and hang out with Cosmic Lion all weekend,
Right.
and it's there's the same level of respect, the same level of love, like, and even like Eli and I text all the time. Like I just send him random cat pictures all the time. I'll just out of nowhere, he'll just get like 3 cat pictures at random for me. And we just talk like that for like 3 months for a little bit before even sending like a message. But I love the relationships because like we all help each other out, and you
Yeah,
guys are doing your spilled ink, like your October Inktober list that you have right now with all the
yeah.
Cosmic Line stuff. And I'm sure that was, influenced by kayfabe
Oh,
because
totally.
with Comix Wellspring and like the spilled ink prompt, that was like me being like, oh wait, there's not a prompt this year. Like I've done it the last 2 years. We should just make one. And so we did it on the fly. We thought of it Friday. We posted it Monday, and so many people are drawing and doing this and reposting it. It's like it's an honor to like take something that like kayfabe did and then like kind of continue that tradition in our own way
Oh,
and
yeah,
really
totally.
get people, when you're getting someone to draw every day, it's like such a pleasure. And then when you see someone,
Absolutely.
I can't wait for them to do the relic hunter, day for, Cosmic Lion. I can't
I
wait to see what
know.
they post up.
I'm so stoked, man. Like last year, Uncle Jerk put me on his Jerktober
Yeah.
prompt, and
Nice.
so many people did Relic Hunter, and it was so awesome, dude. Like I'm including, and full transparency, I'm including all of them
Oh,
in
cool.
issue 2. So like I've got a crazy huge pinup gallery right now, but I'm
Mhm.
also, making room for like everybody who participated in Jerktober and sent me their images and stuff. And it's, to me, it's so cool, man, because like I never expected to have like anybody
Yeah.
even read my book, let
It
alone,
trips
but
you
like
out.
it's crazy, man. Like, the ash can sold a lot of copies. I was
Mhm.
really super stoked about it. The We're almost completely sold out of the first printing of Relic Hunter, and so we're going to be doing another printing for the solicitations, and with issue 2 coming up, man, it's so exciting, man, because I've got Tony Farrow doing a backup story, like drawing a backup story that Manny and I wrote, and Manny helped me write the main story. So we worked pretty amazingly well together on the first issue, and so for this issue, we really wanted to work on the main story together and developed it and spent a lot of time. I'm sort of like segueing it, but like for issue 2, it's pretty awesome. I had some great folks help me out editing wise on it, and help me out with I worked with Carl Altstetter on the layouts for it. So he was like showing, it was awesome, man. I mean, like, he broke down a bunch of my layouts and, showed me the right way to do things, basically.
We know that running a crowdfunding campaign is tough. That's why Comix Wellspring wants to help you out. We offer an exclusive crowdfunding partnership program when you print with us and mention us in your campaigns. When you use our program, you'll get a discount on pricing and a social media shout out to help promote your project. For full details, check out the link in the description. Now, back to our conversation with Adam Lemnah.
But not the right way, but just
Tell
like,
me about that process then. Like did it help you just like see more clarity in like the structure of it
oh
or like,
yeah.
the storytelling? Like what
So
kind of pacing did it help out?
Carl is so, so experienced and
Mhm.
has worked on so many books and with so many amazing artists, and is an incredible artist in his own right. And I love working with him. He's such a great guy, and he offered to take a look at he had picked up the first book and he really liked it, and he offered to take a look at the layouts for the second book, and so I showed him an action sequence that I had laid out, and we went in, like, he shared the screen with me and went into Photoshop and like drew over top of everything, and it was like the greatest, because he helped me understand, like, there's like a difference between like filmmaking and making comics. There's
Mhm.
even though there's a similarity in visual storytelling language, the things that you can do in comics are different, in the way that we as comics creators sort of depict certain things on the page, and also the way that we break the page up can help to tell the story in ways that, I was thinking about, but that I didn't know.
Mhm.
And so that's the thing with all of his experience. It's really great to know, like, one of the things that he told me that I tell people now, like, he said you should always go back every 3 or 4 panels, and this is something that he was told, every 3 or 4 panels to a wider shot, to reestablish the geography of the scene. And it's like, once you start thinking in those terms, and you start
Mhm.
looking at books, and especially books that are like superhero books for the big 2 or big 3 now,
Yeah.
with Image, um, you begin to see these tricks, these storytelling tricks, and that's one of them that helps you constantly to like keep in mind, like, how your characters are moving around within a space and where they would be and what the backgrounds can be and all that sort of thing. So I mean, like, that's just one particular piece of information that he passed on that I thought was like, it's like mind blowing, man.
Yeah,
Because
no,
like
I
that
didn't
just
really think
basically
about
means,
that.
like,
Like,
once a page you got to have a wide shot, so
yeah.
people know where your characters are standing. But once you realize that, and then you look at comics that don't have that, you're
You
like,
see how
oh,
confusing that is. Wow. That's cool. I didn't even think about that. And I love that because I'm
yeah,
trying to like learn how to like edit more as I'm editing more books in Apollo. And so
Yeah.
like, I'm a big Shelley Bond fan. And so like I do Filth and Grammar and things like that. And
Oh
but
yeah.
it's like so interesting trying to find like the next eye-opening thing that's like been in front of you like the entire time. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
always so obvious when it comes to like I mean, one of the biggest things I always try to do too now, once I realized it, was like I feel like people need to know your whole story by page one. They should know like the vibe and feel. And I kind of got that from like Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns. You could look
Hmm.
at page one and, it's a 9-panel grid where he's in the Batmobile, and not in the Batmobile, in a race car. And
Hmm.
he's like, like all this stuff is going on. And he has to like escape out of it. But it literally breaks down. Like if you compare it to the whole story, it explains the whole story of Dark Knight on how he's
Hmm.
just like, I need to switch to manual and like all this stuff. It's like him returning to like Batman and like, it's like all the controls are shot. That means Gotham has been like, destroyed. It's not the same and like unrecognizable and all this stuff. Like if you compare that to the whole book, you realize like, oh, the layout for your first page should essentially tell you what your story is about or trying to express. And that was like a huge leap. And then when you start figuring out pacing and paneling and like what should be when and where, it's kind of like just you're filling in a puzzle piece for your book. It kind of gets easier to make, kind of like when you learn music theory, you kind
Oh
of
yeah,
know what
totally.
note should be next or what chord works with this chord and how
Yeah.
you should, move this way.
There's a
Um,
language to it for sure. And
yeah.
once you spend time doing it and you spend time around other people that do it and you talk to other people about it, I mean, that's the thing. It's a craft like
Yeah.
any other sort of thing, so and I know that it sounds silly to say something like that, but it is. And it requires that kind of dedication, but
Hmm.
also it requires that kind of communication
Hmm.
to grow as an artist, because you can't just like, if you're having to figure everything out on your own, you're going to be reinventing the wheel 50 times. And like,
Yep.
the one thing about comics that you learn as you go on is like there are so many shortcuts that you can take in order to tell a story more clearly or more concisely, or to make an image have more impact or draw the eye in a direction or whatever. So it's so important to sort of like tie it back into what we were saying before. Um, it's so important to have a community to
Hmm.
like talk to about this sort of thing and to learn from each other. I mean, that's one of the things, I say this all the time too. One of the things that I love the most about being part of Next Panel Press is that we have a group chat,
Yeah.
and we're always talking to each other about our lives, and we're sharing work with each other from the time that it's like layouts all the way through finished inks and colors and all that sort of thing. We're getting input from each other. Um, Recently one of the guys he's putting out a collection of his books, and there was a question about what color the title treatment should be, and the trade dress on the book, and like, we weighed in and things. He ended up going in a certain direction, but it was really great to be able to see like everybody's like input. You know what I mean? It's like, and the way that it affects everybody. Like I've learned so much from those guys. It's because so many of them. I mean, like, they've been drawing for 5 times as long as
Yeah.
I have.
I feel you there. Yeah. Yeah. And it's good
So,
to like take in that advice and be open to feedback, like at any stage of your career as well.
absolutely.
Especially like because what you're saying, it's a craft, and so many people forget that the craft of making comics is truly a thing. And people feel like, when it comes to storytelling or just creating comics in general, they could just do anything you want, which is entirely true. Yes,
Yeah.
but like if and I hate to put in this kind of phrasing, but if you want something with like quality that's going to resonate, that's going to
Hmm.
like really stand out, like you don't just build a house without a blueprint,
No, no, not
like
at all.
and I don't know why people think like creating is like the one profession that you could just go in without planning and thinking about and like elevating and
I
like
mean, that's
there's
what
so many
separates the
things.
professionals from the amateurs. And I mean, like, I don't say that with any like I don't look down my nose at anybody.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Anybody can do what we do, but what separates the amateurs from the professionals is the planning, is the forethought and the desire to present something that is clear and understandable and that tells a story that you want to tell in the way that you want to tell it. And I mean, I've known as a filmmaker, as a professional within the entertainment industry, I've known many people who, many amateurs who want to be professionals, but they don't want to do the processes that are required in order to be a professional. They don't want to work with storyboards or something like that, like just as an example. And it's like, well, the storyboards are there so that when you go for your tech scout, you can go and you can see the space that you're in, and then you can block the things that you want, block it the way that you want, move the camera the way that you want. And if you didn't think about that ahead of time, if you didn't make the shot list and you didn't talk to the artist and you didn't do your storyboard, like every single piece plays into, and this is something, you mentioned Shelley Bond. It's very, it's very clear in Filth and Grammar. She lays it out. These are the things that you need to do in order to develop your story to a point where it's clear enough that people are going to understand it, but also tell it in a way that people are used to reading it. Because that's another thing too, is like, not only is there a language to it, but people expect your book to be written within that language. And if it's not, then it's going to be incomprehensible and people aren't going to want to buy it.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Or it'll just be like, oh, that was cool. It's just going to go in a pile. And you're just going to forget about it. Like, you're just going to be like, oh, wow.
I mean, that's going to happen almost inevitably anyway, So, like,
be honest,
you've got to really hook somebody in the first couple of pages. And that's, that's why guys like Jack Kirby said, the first page should be a splash page, because you got to hook the reader in, man. You got to make sure that they want to be there with you for that journey. And part of like hooking people in, especially when they have like 100, like, why do they want to buy your comic? That's the thing that I think about so much when I'm at conventions, because there's so many books out there. It's like, what is going to make somebody want to come to my table and buy my book over any other book that they see that's here? And I think on a certain level, there's a lot of artists, even, successful ones, who don't think about that, but for me, it's like, well, if I'm in, I don't necessarily want to say competition, because I don't like to think in those terms, but like, if I am competing for the attention of people at the con and I'm competing for the dollars that they bring, then I want my book to be something that they want to pick up and read, so it's like, the story has to be at a certain place. The art has to be at a certain level. The, production has to be in a certain level. And I don't expect people to be like as, obsessive about it as I am, because I'm super obsessive about things. But, like, I'll obsess about like paper stock for a month, you know what I mean? But like, it's all in service of the story and the aesthetic and everything else, because like creating a comic is like creating a pitch for a movie, like you're trying to sell to the person, not just the story, but you're also trying to sell your personal aesthetic to somebody, and you're trying to sell your point of view to somebody. And sometimes you only get like the cover and the front page, the first page, so you gotta have that information there, whether it's laying out the basis of the story, or, making a compelling image, or a combination of the two. The whole idea is to, make people want to pick that up. I think also too, in independent comics, there's a lot of like, well, fuck you if you don't get it, but it's like, like, that's the wrong attitude to have as far as I'm concerned. And I mean, like, anybody that has that attitude, that's fine. But like, I'm not there I'm there because people have shown an interest in the art that I create, and I like creating art for people. and I like telling stories, and I like people to read the stories that I tell, because if otherwise I'm just screaming into the void, you know?
Dude, and I've always felt it like it's, and you're right, it's hard to, avoid the word competition when it comes to like conventions and like getting people's dollar. It always feels, I always use this example where it sounds like all of us are holding our books inside the stadium seats and we're trying to talk to the one customer on the main stage, just being like, buy my book. And that's what it feels like. Just all of us screaming and screaming at like the one person center stage just to get them to buy our book versus everybody else in the stadium seats selling their books. And it feels like sometimes it's defeating, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Sometimes it
totally.
just, sometimes you're at the con that's just not meant for you, or your aesthetic, that region, like I didn't do well at Heroes at all, like, and
No
but I did
way.
well. Yeah, I actually, I only sold like, I did not sell much at Heroes. It could have been the location, it could have been anything. But it could have, I didn't do well Heroes, but I was at, Buffalo the next weekend or 2 weekends later, and I killed it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
going to Buffalo again for sure, because that was like maybe just the right people that were into like my aesthetic, the
Sure.
storytelling I was trying to do.
Yep.
People would run up and check out Cybersync and the Punk Anthology, and I was selling the Punk Anthology left and right, and it was mind blowing. But like I couldn't get it to budge until we started doing like bundles when we're,
Oh, yeah.
whenever I table with people.
Totally.
Doug Knight, we actually discovered this. I love Doug Knight. We got to table
I
so
love
much this
Doug too.
year.
He's great, man.
Phenomenal, and he's just such a grinder too. That guy is always working
His
on
heart
stuff.
is so big. He's such a sweet
Yes.
dude. He's funny as
Mhm.
shit, and he's an
Yeah.
incredible artist.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
and he's
man.
blind, and it trips me out.
I
Like,
know.
it just trips me out.
I show his art off all the time to people. I'm like, yo, check this out. You know that he can't see.
Yeah,
They're like,
yeah.
what?
And it's, he's such a pleasure to be around when we, do tables and con. And so I love tabling with him because like we discovered if we did a bundle, he always does like a bundle where it's like all of his stuff for like $40. And I was like, what
Sure.
if you toss in the Punk Anthology for an extra 10? And that way you try to get some extra sales and I get, a sale off the Punk Anthology. And we
Yeah,
realized that worked. And then now we just come, whoever I'm tabling with, I'm like, okay, so we all have this. What are you guys pricing your stuff at?
totally.
Okay, what if we did a bundle where it's like your first issue, my first issue, and their first issue, and all of it for $20, and we all make a sale at once.
We
And
always
then
do
we,
that for Cosmic Lion, man. It's a huge, huge way
yep,
to, like a rising tide, lift
yeah,
all ships, man. And that's
hmm
it, like, again, it's all about everybody working together, regardless of like ego, regardless
hmm
of like publisher or whatever. Like, as an artist, like, I'm equally happy to see lesser known comics and Apollo sell like 1,000 copies of something as I
yeah,
am to see like Cosmic Lion, because it's like, I know everybody, I love everybody involved, and it's like I want to
hmm
see everybody be successful. So for me, that's like one of the biggest things is like I want to share, I want to have like, I love the community that we've managed to build up. And it's like, when Ed passed away, it was like in danger. Like, what's going to happen? Is the community
yep,
going to sort of crumble? Like, what's going to happen? And I mean, like,
or
I think
turn on each
that
other in a sense too. You know what
exactly.
I
And
mean? Like,
I
yeah,
think that it's sort of like allowed all of us to sort of grow a little bit more. And I think that everybody has been like, it's been super positive,
hmm
in the long run, because everybody is like sort of stepping up and continuing to have this great community with each other. And I haven't seen that. I've only seen that get stronger. And I mean, like this year in 2025 at IC3, that's going to be incredible, man.
yeah. I'm so excited. We're planning a lot of cool stuff regarding IC3 this year, and I'm kind of working on a little secret project right now that we'll talk about off air. But it's going to be a really cool start of the year, I feel.
Cannot wait.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And I mean, plus we're doing cool stuff. Like, at Baltimore, we did a really cool like scavenger hunt. We called
Oh,
it
I
a
love
collect 'em
that.
all. Yeah, and what we did different, and I love sharing this like on air too, so other people can just steal this idea and do their own. But ours was a collect 'em all, so that the audience would get this sheet and it would have like all the creators that were in Artist Alley. And instead of going and just getting a stamp, like typically, like, oh, I need to get the stamp and I got all 5 stamps, yay. But they
Yeah.
had to go walk up and hear the creators pitch. And once they heard the creator's pitch of what they're selling, then they got to either hit, they signed off on it, the creator signs off, and then they have a spot to mark like come back later or purchase something already. And that way it's more enticing for the audience
I love
to
that.
go and like, and if you have 5 friends at a con, create the
Yeah,
small little scavenger hunt and just give the 3 rules. You have to hear the pitch, have them signed off, and then you get whatever.
I
And
love this
then
idea, man.
so many people bought more books at
Of
indie
course.
like artist alley because they're like, oh, I didn't, that sounds really cool actually, like I need to snag that. And I was so happy to hear from creators that they were selling books. I was happy to hear from fans being like, I bought way more than I anticipated to, and there was books I would have never looked at or considered that I purchased, and that just like
I
made my
think that
heart glow.
we're definitely moving in a direction where people are more interested in finding indie comics right now.
Yep, I think so.
It was something that I saw at Portland for Rose City.
Yeah, you're with Jay Louder and Davey and all them. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. And Cosmic Lion,
Hmm.
Eli and I were there along with John Burkett and Ben Perkins. And it was so much fun, man. But we sold a ton of books, dude. And
Sick.
it's because we were one of the few indie comics publishers
Hmm.
with multiple books there, and people wanted to buy indie comics.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, like, there's an appetite for it right now. We all need to be aware of that, and we all just
Hmm.
need to be like hitting every show that we can, getting it out there, but also being smart about like, you know, there's so many strategies that you need to have in order to be, a successful cartoonist. And that was another reason that I really loved Cartoonist Kayfabe, especially as it began to go on, as Ed and Jim began to talk more about what their expectations were from shows, and
Hmm.
also what their strategies were for selling books and for doing shows and all these things. I mean, like and the things that we all do on our own, the strategies that we come up with, and that we share with one another. I mean, like, it's really important because we're all sort of coming from the same angle, and we all just want to like sell as much as we can. But we more than that, we want to like get the books in front of people's faces
Right.
as much as possible. And so, I mean, like, it's been huge for Cosmic Lion to be able to have like distribution through Diamond. That's
Oh
really
yeah.
exciting. But I think
And
that
I even got Cosmic Lion books in my at Four Color Fantasies. Once the post went up, I sent it to
love it.
Eric and I was like, dude, check this out. And then I even followed up with him. I was like, hey, this is now in previews. And he was like, oh, I ordered this, this, and this.
That's
And
awesome.
so I'm super hyped to see my shop like carry Cosmic Lion
I
books.
know,
And
me too. I'm
dude,
so
all
excited,
it
but
takes
it's
is just
like
hitting your people up. You know what I mean? That took no effort for me to do. You know what I mean? Like it was just
totally.
a message. And now you guys are selling in Virginia. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like how cool, like, and I love that.
It's also, I mean, like, I what the direction that the point that I kind of wanted to make was like, with shows, like they're so important too for us as like indie creators, because that's where we get to meet and
Mhm.
create our audience. And I think that anything that we can do to work together to make more sales happen for
Yeah.
everybody is where it's at, man. I mean, like, and also just to get more like eyes on everybody's art. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing, man. And I mean, we're the next level, dude. The next generation, and it's happening. And it's wild. Manny and I talk about it all the time. We're just like, how did this happen? We went from loving comic books to like making comic books to now like people want to buy them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a trip. And it's like, you don't really imagine any of this to happen when you first start doing your books. You know what I mean? Like
No.
I was mind blown by the response by the punk anthology. I'm always mind blown by the response to the punk anthology whenever I go to shows. But like the first Kickstarter that made me realize like, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna go from a podcast to a publisher. That was just like it was scary and it's been
Totally.
terrifying all the time, but it's so rewarding at the end of the day. Like, I get to publish people that weren't published or getting attention before. You bring together a group of people that now have like a book that they could call their own, and they're included into it, and it's in
Yep.
this like amazing print quality as well. Like, it's just, there's so many rewarding things and so many people. And I mean, I'm kind of glad Marvel keeps spitting out movies and TV
Agreed.
shows and all that, because people are getting so tired of them.
Yep.
And the more they spit out, the more tired people get of them, and the more indie comics we're probably going to sell because of that. Like, that
Exactly.
that burnout of the big two is like, the whole thing was, Snyder and all that, and people burning out on DC. And now, like, James Gunn is awesome. I have full faith in what he's doing
Totally.
for sure. Yeah. But like, people are still like, I don't know. Like, it's still more DC. It's
Yeah.
convoluted. What universes are we in? And now they're just like, oh, I just go buy this. I'm supporting an independent artist. I'm buying a book that I would have not have seen on any other screen or other stands. And
Yep.
I feel like people who, I always say this, but like, people who buy indie comics are really true like lovers of comic books.
Oh yeah,
They're
for
the ones
sure.
that like love the craft, and the everything about a comic is what you get when you buy indie.
They like
And
they like supporting artists too, man. And it's like, they like buying a piece of a person, and
Mhm.
like, having that like something special and unique. You know,
Yep.
definitely, definitely
Yeah.
agree.
It's insane, and I really do feel like this. I'm also seeing right now a big trend, which is interesting as well. As big as indie comics are, and the revolution that's really happening with all of us encouraged creators, I'm seeing also the downfall of creators that were creating during COVID. That now we're like, it's crazy. It's 2024 going into 2025, and life has changed kind of once more, in the sense of like, now they don't have time to make comics because now they're back in the offices, they're back stuck with their day job, or they're not having time. So there's some people dropping out of making comics and being productive, just like how a million podcasts came up during COVID. Some people only made it to like episode 5. You're lucky if you hit 20 episodes. I'm seeing that same effect with comics right now, which a lot of creators who can no longer keep up with the routine, or have the opportunity to make comics, aren't really making them anymore. And again, as much of a bummer that is, it's another advantage for creators who are able to stick it out and have the advantage to make comics, because now it's kind of opening up more of the audience for us as well. And that's just like something we're always going to fight for. Is indie comics are at the bottom, so you're battling against the people just entering, the absolute amateurs trying their first thing out ever, to like the people who've been in it for 5-6 years.
Yeah.
There's a interesting balance of like, I don't know, I guess like levels that
Oh
are
yeah,
within
totally.
just the bottom level of indie underground comics. And it's a weird like mixture of just
Totally.
oddness, and commitment.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
hardest part. It's just committing, because you said it took you a year to draw the book.
It
That's
did.
commitment, man. Like,
Yeah,
that's a
man.
lot of work. Yeah.
It is. You realize as you do it how much work it is, but we've been taught how to break it down, and that's really like that's what you have to do. You just break it down into manageable pieces. You continually move forward, and eventually the book will be done. And if I can give any advice to anybody that's watching the show right now, it's just like, just keep doing what you're doing every day. If you only have 5 minutes, if you only have time to draw one panel, still draw it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because like, you can go back and you can look at it, and I would encourage you not to edit it until you're finished.
Yeah.
Because a
Honestly.
lot of us waste a lot of time editing along the way, and it's it definitely slows the process down. So I personally, just in my personal feeling, I've learned a lot on this second issue, but I think for the third issue, I will probably streamline the process even more. And, because for the first book I did less planning and sort of like more in the moment kind of thing. And then for this issue, I did a ton of planning, a ton of editing, and it's taken a little bit longer to get to the end here. But I think that like the overall quality of the book is I'm really excited, dude.
I'm hyped to see it. I'm so excited to see issue 2. I'm
Yeah, man.
beyond hyped, dude. This is issue 1 was so much fun just to go through and
Oh,
read,
thanks,
and
man.
just like it's a blast. And like I said, it hit all the marks that I really love of, like, like the 70s and early 80s of, like, comics and artwork and like all that cool stuff that, like, it gives me memories of me being a little bit younger and just being so heavily into that high fantasy stuff. And
Yeah.
recently I've dived back into it because I got into like Baldur's Gate and stuff like that, and it's just been like so much fun. And so like it really does pull like an interesting nostalgic thread on
It
me.
really
And
does. Yeah, man.
mhm,
It's fun. When I released the book, I was sort of like curious how it would do, and it's done really well with people. People seem to have like it hits like a cool sort of nostalgic spot, and it's really funny because when the new Titan Savage Sword of Conan came out, um, their book is the same size as my book,
yeah, yeah.
and their cover stock is the same cover stock for my
Oh
book,
dang, that's
which
cool.
you guys at Comix Wellspring did. So it's like, I was like, yeah, I
I
felt
love
real good,
that.
man. I was like, all right. I tapped in and like I was there first,
Hmm.
which was really
Yeah.
cool.
And
So,
so much of that, it just, I don't know, it makes me want to listen to like Blue Oyster Cult and like all my old like like high fantasy some stuff. You know what I mean? It's just
yeah,
it's the best, and I can't wait. I'm super hyped to see everything you're working on and you're doing.
thanks, man.
It sounds like you have so much more on your plate.
Oh, man, yeah.
Um,
There's a ton of great stuff. There's stuff I can't share yet about
mhm.
issue 2 that I'll share with you off.
Awesome.
That I'm just like, and then the romance book. I ended up just real quick. This past year, I ended up working with a poet here in LA, a female Chicano poet, and
Oh, cool.
she's amazing. And we hit it off, and she's writing some stories for me, and I'm going to do a full-on romance comic. It's really exciting, man. And I did the cover and the layout for her poetry book, and it was really fun. And
I think I saw that cover, if I'm
yeah,
not mistaken.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's called Miss Romantic.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Gina Gina underscore rock or um, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the. Never mind. I'm just trying
I'm
to
the
think of
worst
the
at
other
that too. Yeah.
Instagram. But if you
I
follow
can't.
her, then you'll find her book. So yeah, definitely go check her out. She's awesome. Regina
I'm
Gomez.
where else, as we're kind of like signing off too at the same time, where can we find all of
Oh
your
yeah,
work and your art? Like, and if there's any other projects you want to plug, like,
yeah,
now's the
yeah.
time. Yeah.
So let's see here. Definitely want to plug Afro Futures. Um, because I did some coloring in that, but also because the book is like super awesome. That's Troy Jeffrey Allen. That'll be coming from Cosmic Lion. Um, Monster Inc. or Monstrous Inc., which is a monster pinup book
Ooh.
Kickstarter right
Oh,
now for Long Beach Drink and Draw. That I've got a monster in there. It's really fun.
sick.
Obviously, Relic Hunter 2, the romance book. Manny, my writing partner, and I have a ton of ideas for new books that are super exciting. You can find me at cosmiclionproductions.com. You can order commissions through cosmiclionproductions.com, so please do. And you can find me at Adam Lemnah on Facebook and at Adam Lemnah on Instagram. And also, Relic Hunter is currently being serialized, Relic Hunter 2, on Next Panel Press. And my Patreon is at Adam Lemnah. Please come follow me. And there's some really great stuff. I've got comic book reviews. I've got stuff that's unreleased. I've got comic book supplies for people
Ooh,
to get as well on Patreon. So
that's sick. That's
yeah,
sick. I love that.
lots of stuff.
Dude, rad. Adam, it's
Thanks,
always a
man.
pleasure talking to you. And it's I hope we get to hang in 2025 a lot more than we got to
Oh
in
yeah,
2024. I'm really excited to bump into you at cons and just to see all this stuff come out because it's just been I love following your journey. I love finding, creators that are just humble and you could connect with really well. You know what I
agreed.
mean? Like
Yeah, man.
it's sometimes as weird as it is kind of rare at moments. So I was it's weird. I was just at, SPX and I was at Baltimore Comic Con
Oh
and my
yeah,
girlfriend came with me to both and she loved SPX and I was like Baltimore is going to look and feel very different,
yes.
even the types of creators. And then at the end of it she was like, you're right, like Baltimore had like a way different variety of people.
It's just a
And it
different
just
vibe. Yeah, man.
yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing I think anyone can learn by going to conventions is that you kind of just like your community and everything, you got to find your own. You got to
Yeah,
find
man.
where you fit in and where you find the most growth. And, Heroes is great for me to network, but sales wise was weird. But it was just like, I that networking and the experiences and hanging out with Cosmic Lion and
Yeah,
you and
man.
Anton and everyone, like that made everything worth it.
Oh
And,
yeah, for
I hope
sure.
people remember that too. Like it's not always just about the sales and the money, like just the experience and the friends you get to make.
Exactly, man. That's the most
Irreplaceable.
important thing. Just
Hmm.
making friends and making art, man. That's it, dude.
Yeah, love it. Adam, thank you so much. This has been such a great episode.
Thanks,
And
man.
our audience, thank you all for tuning in for another episode of Inspired Inc. Don't forget to check out our spotlights where we're actually dropping even more creators there. And you can check out everything that they're up to and check out what they offer. We have so much more Inspired Inc. coming your way. Every single Tuesday, we're dropping new episodes. Spilled Ink every Thursday nights. Make sure to keep up with that. And if you're following any sort of, actually, this is out way after Inktober. I hope you followed our Inktober list. And that was a lot of fun. So I'm super hyped about it. But yeah, thank you all so much. Thanks for hanging. Stay creative
Thank you,
and stay
man.
inspired. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Inspired Inc. featuring Adam Lemnah. If you're a comic creator ready to bring your vision to life, look no further than Comix Wellspring. We're not just printers, we're your partners in creativity. With our exceptional customer service, you'll never feel lost in the process. Need your comics fast? Our lightning quick turnaround times have got you covered. And for those big ideas, our industry-leading bulk pricing options make a large print runs a breeze. Don't let your masterpiece gather dust on your hard drive. Click the link on the screen now and let's turn your pages into reality.